Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with your host, me, Neil C. Hughes, who between me and you is a long-time sufferer of imposter syndrome. Because I've been waiting for somebody to tap me on the shoulder and say, that's it, mate, we're on to you now. But guess what? Nothing happened. Nobody tapped me on the shoulder, and I now found myself with 1,000 interviews with tech leaders, startup founders, and CEOs from all over the world. Speaking of which, we've got a few voicemails coming through.
Please leave your message after the tone.
Hello Neil, this is George from Allianz Germany. Congrats to your 1,000 episodes. Wow, what can I say? Keep rocking and go on. Thank you very much. Bye.
Hi Neil, congratulations on 1,000 episodes. What a fantastic achievement. From all the team at Waxman, we can't wait to listen to 1,000 more.
Hi Neil, this is Tanya from Jabra. Congrats on 1,000 episodes.
Hey Neil, this is Jason Woosley at Adobe. Just wanted to call and say congratulations on your 1,000th episode. I'm still catching up, but I am on a mission to listen to them all. Hope everything is going well, and congratulations, my friend.
Hi Neil, this is Penny Wilson from Hootsuite. Congratulations on 1,000 episodes.
Hi Neil, this is Ian Watson, Managing Director of Framework Training. Just wanted to say a hearty congratulations for reaching your 1,000th podcast. Well done.
Now, I am quite a humble guy that tries to look forward more than backwards. But after 1,000 interviews, I think it's a perfect opportunity to get a little reflective on how we got here and where we are right now. And one of the things I notice as I get older is I realise that everything seems to come in cycles. What is considered old-fashioned today will be retired and often mocked. But in a decade or more, it comes back as cool again, just like vinyl. Which I think is a cool thing, by the way. But does anyone remember that Steve Jobs quote about joining up the dots? If you don't, here's a recording of it now.
You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
Now, my good friend David Ralphs from the Join Up Dots podcast put me on to that clip. And I didn't know why at the time. But guess what? Now I look back, I can see exactly why. And when I left school, which was a long, long time ago, they ushered in a careers officer and said, Neil, what would you like to be? And I said, you know what, I quite fancy being a radio DJ. Maybe I could learn my trade in hospital radio and progress through the ranks. Or I'd love to be a writer, writing about things that I'm passionate about. And they said to me, Neil, you can't write. And radio DJ, what's that all about? Here, be a postman. So I'm used to being underestimated, but I then busted out and entered the world of IT. But after 20 years in IT, I found myself writing for a living and recording my own daily podcast, which is essentially a radio show on the internet. But how strange is that? And like David Ralph says, we all know what we want out of life, but we often lose our way and end up settling. But that's what happens when life takes over. Go to school, get a job, get married, have children. That's just the way it is. So after winning the LinkedIn Top Voice accolade over 5 years ago, I said to my long-suffering friend Sam Latimer, Sam, I got a bit of an idea. I want to launch a podcast. Really? He said. He just knew it was another one of my crazy ideas. But I also turned to John White and he gladly accepted my invitation to come on. So I'm curious, do we have anyone who has been around since episode 1? I'm kind of curious if we do have anyone that's been here right from the beginning. And man, I find myself cringing yesterday as I took myself back in time and I forced myself to listen to episode 1. And let's be honest, everybody hates the sound of their own voice. But I'm going to put my fingers in my ears just for a few seconds and give you a little teaser of this is how the first show began with episode 1. Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. A massive warm welcome for anyone out there that's tuning into my first ever podcast, which I must admit is more than a little daunting, sat here in a room all on my own with just a laptop and a microphone for company. It's quite a strange experience. In fact, my friend recently said the best way of getting some alone time is actually to start a podcast. So this did get me thinking that maybe podcasting is the new fishing for the 21st century, where you can grab a little bit of alone time and just chat away. For anyone out there just wondering what is the purpose of this podcast, this first episode is really an introduction of what I kind of want to achieve from it. Probably the first thing I should point out is what this podcast isn't about. And it isn't about me trying to sell you anything, any boot camps or books, ebooks, self-promotion. It's not about any of that at all. But I've been on quite an interesting journey over the last 12 months. Oops. It's not until I heard that I realised just how far we've come on this podcast. And one of the reasons I played that was for any podcaster out there that's a little bit unsure or a bit of a perfectionist. Because the first 10 to 50 episodes or even articles you write or whatever it is that you're doing are going to be a little rough around the edges. But rather than stressing about that, just accept that it's a cool thing because you're learning your craft. And I honestly think there is something beautiful in watching it grow and evolve organically as your confidence and indeed your expertise grows. Now, a few weeks ago, I was finding myself lying on a beach. I thought I'm going to put the tech away, put the podcast away, put my phone down and try and read a book because I just find it so hard to do that. And the book I read was by Roger Daltrey of The Who. And two things from that book really stood out for me. One, his teacher told him that, hey, Roger Daltrey, you're never going to amount to anything. But did he crumble? No, he used that being underestimated and being written off by someone that just didn't understand him to work harder and strive for success. And 50 years later, Roger Daltrey wrote a book entitled Thanks a Lot, Mr. Kibblewhite, My Story. And that one comment from his school years had such a huge impact on his entire life. And another thing I learned from that book was how Keith Moon from The Who put 3 posters up on his wall in a flat in Wembley. And every morning he would wake up to see these posters. And those posters were a surfer girl in Hawaii, the Beach Boys, and a poster of Steve McQueen. Now this is where things get a little bit airy because Keith Moon visualised his goal and went on to marry a surfer girl in Hawaii. He became best friends with the Beach Boys and then he went on to move next door to Steve McQueen. How insane is that? But the story didn't have an happy ending. So I don't want to glamorise that, but it really did hammer home. If you visualise your goal, no matter how unrealistic and crazy it might feel right now, you can make anything happen. Keith Moon did it with those 3 posters on a much smaller scale. That's what I've done too. So if you want to follow in mine or anyone else's footsteps, don't listen to naysayers. Follow your own path. Because I'll be completely honest with you, never in my wildest dreams did I expect to be interviewing Manchester United, Real Madrid, Star Trek's William Shatner, TV talk show host Wendy Williams, and this year find myself in a room having a chat with Gary Vaynerchuk in Vegas and then meeting him again in Armenia. So it has been a surreal experience that sometimes makes me think I'm really plugged into the Matrix or something. But as Ronan Keating once said, life's just a roller coaster, you just got to ride it all night long. But we're in danger of getting a little bit too deep here, so let's get some more of those virtual voicemails on.
Hi Neil, this is Carl Worth, CEO of Evergage. Congrats on 1,000 episodes.
Hi Neil, Juan from Uruguay here. Congratulations on the 1,000 episodes of your podcast. You are doing an awesome job and looking forward to see the 10,000.
Now, when it first started this podcast, it felt a little weird talking into the microphone and never hearing from anyone, despite being listened to in over 165 countries. So again, I turned to my friend, Mr. Ralphs, and I said, what's all that about? What's going on here? And he said to me, Neil, in your life, you've probably listened to thousands and thousands of hours of radio. But how many times have you felt the urge to contact the DJ? That's when the penny dropped. But as it's 1,000 episodes, I wanted to try and give something back to you all. And I didn't know how much swag to order in advance, and my book on innovation is not due for release until next year. So here's the deal. I've recently rebranded the Tech Blog Writer podcast to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. But do you remember that part in The Godfather where Marlon Brando says, "One day, the Godfather will ask a favour of you"? So, if possible, I'm going to ask that you can help me in my battle against the algorithms by leaving a rating or review of this podcast, because ultimately the more ratings I get, it helps the show's new brand rise up the rankings. And my next milestone is to grow this show from 50,000 listeners a month to 100,000, which will help us spread the conversation that we're creating together. Now, I'm not sure if you know, but Apple Podcasts, formerly iTunes, stores ratings per country. So, for example, I think currently I've got 110 reviews in the US store and 22 in the UK. And Apple reviews are much like currency to podcasters and can actually help you push the podcast up the rankings and get closer to that 100,000 a month that I was talking about. And why do I even want to do that and chase numbers? Well, it will help me secure even better guests for the show. And most importantly, helps me build this online community even more. So if you've got an iPhone, I think it's as simple as just launching the Apple Podcast app, tap the search bar. You should already have it on there because you're probably listening to me on it. Tap the album art for the podcast and then the reviews tab and just leave a quick rating. If you can do that on whatever platform you listen to, this show is available on I think about 30 different platforms, everything from Deezer, Pandora, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, the list goes on and on. But here's my pledge. Whatever device you're listening to this podcast on, I'm going to ask that you leave a rating or review, but then take a screenshot of it when it's published on that platform and email me that screenshot to techblogwriter@outlook.com or tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. I will then not only give you a shout out on here, but I also want to send you some swag. And I'll also give you a free copy of my book as soon as it's released next year, which has a price tag of $17.95 in dollars, according to the brief I got from the publisher yesterday. So how does that sound? In a nutshell, you leave me a rating and review, I send you some swag to celebrate 1,000 episodes, and I'll also put you on my list to get a free book when it comes out next year. I might regret saying this because if 50,000 of you do that, you could run the risk of bankrupting me. Maybe that would be an incentive for you to do just that. But hey, let the chips fall where they may. I cannot think of a better way of going out in style than giving back to my audience.
Hey Neil, this is CJ Hunsinger from Day One Ventures. Just want to say a huge congratulations on the 1,000 episodes. Feels like you and I have known each other for a few years now, even though we haven't met in person, and now I'm seeing you surpass the 1,000 mark. So huge congratulations, man. Keep up the great show, the great work, and sharing the stories of up-and-coming and proven successful entrepreneurs, founders, and execs everywhere. So congrats again, man. Keep up the good work. CJ.
So where do we go from here, gang? I'm not a dictator, and a big part of this show is me and the guests sharing our views about tech trends. But then we pass the microphone back to you as a listener. But as for the future of this podcast, I'm asking for a bit of guidance here. I'd love for you to let me know more about what direction you would like me to take this for the next 1,000 episodes. What do you like? What do you not like? What questions should I ask? What type of guests do you like? Do you want more solo shows? Whatever it is that's running through your head now, capture that feedback, send me a quick email, and I promise to listen to you all. So like I said a few moments ago, I'm going to continue to try and secure big names and report directly from show floor of huge tech events all over the world. But, and this is the most important part, stay faithful to my passion with this show and give every startup founder or technologist or entrepreneur with a platform that they can make their voice heard. Because after 1,000 interviews, I've learned that behind every tech success story is an intriguing and often inspirational and very human story. On the surface, it often seems that the guests will encounter a problem and rather than put a Facebook status complaining about it, they actually dedicate their life to solving that problem and creating a business around it. But here is the really weird thing. They have also often been put in that position with the exact amount of knowledge and experience to begin solving that problem. It almost feels like that the planets have aligned for that exact moment in time. Now, I'm not a religious man, but I've shared 1,000 stories on here that suggest to me that the universe is always watching and will give you a little nudge in the right direction when you need it. For example, there's been a few variants of this particular story where a startup founder will fly across the world and attempt to obtain funding or tech talent, only to walk away with absolutely nothing and think to themselves on that flight home, I think I've reached the end of the line. But they then meet someone at the baggage carousel that is a developer who brings their vision to life, or find themselves sat next to a venture capitalist on a plane. And that story and similar variants of it is something that I've heard so many times over these 1,000 episodes. So my advice to every single person listening out there is listen and look for the signs. And don't be afraid to put your phone down and let your mind daydream. So that's what I've learned from 1,000 interviews, but what about you? Maybe you've had some completely different takeaways, and I'd love to hear about them. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. Remember my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. If you're thinking of wanting to start a podcast, but you're not bothered about any of the technical aspects and you just want to record a conversation and let somebody else worry about it, remember, I can help you with that too. So this is not the end, folks, but the beginning of another journey of the next 1,000 episodes, where we look at how technology is not only transforming our lives, businesses, and indeed entire industries, but we're also going to wash it down with some incredible human stories, filled with insights, expertise, and a little sprinkling of inspiration too. So let's retire those lazy tech versus humans debates and understand that by aligning the best of humans and the best of technology, anything is possible. Whether it be Keith Moon and those 3 posters on his wall, or Elon Musk putting a Tesla Roadster floating through space playing Starman by David Bowie. As we prepare for space tourism, I think it's time to break free from self-imposed shackles of limitation and start to dream bigger and think bigger. Will you join me? Phew, that's a good answer. I will see you the same time, same place tomorrow as we prepare for life in 2020. Boogie, 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 boogie. Thanks for putting up with me every day, gang. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.